Welcome back. I am John P. Today we are going to be talking about one watch collections at every price point. Here's the thing. In watches today, there's a bit of a trend where people want more and more watches. I certainly can understand this because, of course, not only am I a watch dealer at delraywatch.com, so I see this trend, but also personally myself, I always like to have kind of the latest and the greatest watch as well. And today, there's so many great things happening from so many brands. So oftentimes it can be very easy to get kind of caught up in, getting the latest cool watch that comes out. And you see it in all the blogs and magazines and YouTube channels. There's so many watches that come out and it can be very difficult to choose the watches to put into your collection. So what I have done, because I handle so many watches with Delray Watch and also my personal collecting, I have chosen a one watch collection at every price point that you can be very comfortable wearing as long as you like the watch. And you can also rest assured that this watch is going to be fairly versatile for what it is. So all of these watches you can wear, and you shouldn't be too afraid that maybe it will be inappropriate for some instance or some occasion or setting. So all these watches, very great choices at different price points for you. But before we do that, on the wrist today, I have a vintage watch from my collection, a vintage IWC 666, one of the original ingenieurs. I really do, let's get a grab here. I really do love this watch, and I got it on a very cool rainbow and white strap. So what is going to be, please do not forget to check out delraywatch.com, and you can find me on Instagram, The Real John P. So what is going to be the first watch, and this is going to be a price point of about $500 US. This is going to be a Seiko watch, a watch brand that is very common at this price point for delivering value watches and pretty much as high quality as you can get at this price point. This is going to be a Seiko Presage, the SRPB 41 or similar, featuring the 4R35 movement with a 41-hour power reserve, 5-bar water resistance. Now, the thing about this watch is it does not feature a sapphire crystal, but that's going to be very common, I guess, lack of a feature at this price point, right? This is going to feature a crystal that's not going to be as hard and scratch resistant, but what you do get in this watch is so many other great things, right? You get that workhorse kind of powerful movement, in my opinion, at this price point, $500. In a time today where prices are going up on everything, Seiko seems to have only kind of creeped up a little bit in terms of pricing. So I think when you consider, sure, you're giving up that sapphire crystal, you do get the workhorse movement that is time tested, but also you are getting a beautiful dial on this watch. Now they have different colors of this particular style of watch, but I really do like the one pictured here. I think at $500, you really can't find a dial on a watch that's as visually appealing or as complex, in my opinion, as what we're looking at here. But also rest assured that the quality of the watch is going to stand the test of time at this price point, right? So I'm not putting this up against a Rolex, but I think for $500, you really cannot beat this watch. And this is also a watch that you can put on a strap or have it on the bracelet, and you can wear it to so many different occasions. So I think at the $500 price point, it's extremely difficult to beat what Seiko is offering today, what they're able to produce because of the way that they offer lean manufacturing using different Japanese production techniques. I don't think you can really beat the Seiko Presage line, including the SRPB 41. $500, pick this one up. Now next, we have a Nomos watch. Now Nomos has gone through some price increases within the last year, and the last 2 years, and even 3 years. More people have gotten on the Nomos train. More people have started putting Nomos in their collection. Nomos has built out many different model lines, introducing sport lines, now recently introducing more of a bracelet style watch for one of their clubs, but particularly what we're looking at here at the $1,000 price point is the Nomos Club Campus. Now, yes, the retail prices have gone up a little bit in the United States, but if you hunt around Nomos, you can still find a really great deal, not even looking at pre-owned like what we do at Delray Watch, but just hunting around in the gray market. Do yourself a favor, it's really difficult to beat this watch if you can snag it at about $1,000, and that's because it's going to feature an in-house movement. Not many chances out there for you to get a true in-house movement at $1,000. When Nomos started using the Alpha caliber in their watches, it was pretty unheard of, and it gained so much respect from watch collectors nerds and savants out there that are used to collecting higher end pieces that you had to historically have in order to get the in-house movement, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a better watch than another, though it does show the dedication to horology from the brand, which goes a long way in the collecting circles, as we all know. So we look specifically at the Nomos Club campus. This is their more junior or their more entry-level piece, but it still does feature the high quality that you would expect from a higher-end brand, a German brand using very simplistic Bauhaus design. This is going to be a 36mm watch, so it is going to be a little bit smaller, but it will be versatile. Now Nomos has bracelets for their watches, so you can make it a little bit more sporty, or you can dress it down on one of their suede straps or some of the other leather offerings. They offer Horween, very high-quality leather straps as well. But I would really move quickly on Nomos because I do see them kind of fitting the mold of what longer historied brands are doing. They're increasing their retail prices and they're doing the whole limited release thing with some of their watches, which has increased desirability for not only the brand, but those particular watches as well. So if you're on the fence about Nomos, I think probably pick one up sooner than later. Now next, at the $2,500 price point, this is where things start getting really tricky, right? This is where a brand can either go in the direction of literally focusing or leaning on their brand recognition, or they can kind of go the other way and try to build a watch that's going to be for enthusiasts. It's going to be quality focused and not necessarily branding focused. And I think a really great overlap of that is going to be a Longine. Yes, a Longine, a brand that was once very high end, going neck and neck with Rolex quite literally in the 1950s in and about that time, but now has become more of an entry-level brand that's been overlooked. They're part of the equestrian circuit. That doesn't include a lot of people, but now they're starting to build out something like the Longine Spirit platform, which I really enjoy. And this watch comes in so many variations in two sizes, comes in 40mm, 42mm, and up to 10 variations depending on where you are in the world and the different colors offered in your market. And I think that's really great because that's something that brands like Rolex have done with their Datejust and their Oyster Perpetuals, give you so many variations, but the same watch at the end of the day, whereas many brands might have two colors for you. But Longine recognizes that people have different wrist sizes and they want you to choose what works for you. And so when they do that, the colors, the sizes, I really appreciate that. And with this watch, you're going to get a screw down crown, which makes this watch able to be worn in so many different scenarios. You can now start swimming with it. Now I get it, there are many brands that have been able to use different sealing methods for the cases, but I still believe in the time-tested truth of the screw-down crown, something Rolex has not deviated away from, and you see it on Longine, which I appreciate. It's more of a classic method, whereas Breitling kind of just puts rubber pieces or series of rubber pieces in there to create that water resistance. But you're going to get 100-meter water resistance with this watch, which I think is pretty great. It's going to have a base at a movement that's been slightly modified, and Longine uses their own caliber, but this is going to give you a 72-hour power reserve for $2,500. Plus, you can probably get a steep discount somewhere because Longine hasn't quite come back from where they were in terms of brand recognition. I think this is a great, not only value play, but overall great everyday one-watch collection watch, the Longine Spirit. Very handsome watch. What do you think about the Longine Spirit? Leave it in the comments below. Now next, at $5,000, we're going to be talking about the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, the modern version. Well, whether it's the red grape that I own. Now, get it, the red grape in 39, the Oyster Perpetual from Rolex is quite considerably higher trading out in the market than the $5,000 price point. But if you can get one at retail, or perhaps you get a colorway and a size that is not as hot as something like that, think a 36 in black, or maybe a silver dial Rolex Oyster Perpetual, I think you're getting a lot of great value. Now I can talk about all day how Rolex has great high quality watch. But the reality is at $5,000, the Oyster Perpetual, in my opinion, because I wear one most of the time as my everyday wear, is just a great watch. The bracelet at this price point cannot be touched. Buttery smooth, decades of iterations of the Oyster bracelet. And of course, you have the Oyster case. Everything in the Rolex Oyster Perpetual has been improved iteratively over decades and decades and decades. And that's why I think it's just so hard to go wrong. Now, this particular watch is not going to have a finely decorated movement. It's not going to have a sapphire see-through case back, but it is going to be a rugged, everyday, truly do anything that you want watch. And that's what we're talking about, is a one watch collection. And that's how it really fits this $5,000 one watch collection criteria compared to something that might have a little bit more horological value. This is going to be an everyday, do everything type of watch. So that's why it fits it there. Let me know what you think about the Rolex OP in the comments below. The Rolex haters and lovers, I want to see this in the comments below. Now, next, we're going to touch lastly on the $7,500 price point. Now, this, when you start spending this type of money on a watch, at least looking at the retail price, chances are you probably have other watches. And that's also why I'm not going to touch on watches that cost over this price point, because if you're buying a $10,000, $20,000 plus watch, chances are you have other watches, and the one watch collection probably just does not make a whole lot of sense, right? It can be very difficult to spend that type of money on a watch and expect it to do everything. When you start getting into the higher price points, there's a lot more specialization and focusing on a very specific type of watch. So at the $7,500 price point, I would recommend for a one watch collection to be the Jaeger-LeCoultre or the Jaeger-LeCoultre JLC Master Control Date. Now, they've had different variations over time, right? We've had the sector dial, and now we have the more modern size. We have the 40 millimeter, which, is post sector dial, which the sector dial has become ultra desirable. But this particular model is in current production, and it's a true watch enthusiast watch from a brand that has really never deviated away from offering watches that watch collectors would love, right? The Alarms, the Revile series, the Memovox, the Chronographs, the World Times, the Perpetual calendars. They offer the complications, and that's what we love as watch collectors, right? The subtleties, the nuances, the complications. And JLC has really never deviated away from that since they were producing watches in the earliest days. And so particularly this JLC Master Control Date is something that can truly do everything for you. Now, they don't seem to really offer this watch on a bracelet anymore. They did in the past. On the website, it's mostly on a strap. Perhaps they can put it on a bracelet if you absolutely needed to. You'd have to contact JLC, but even setting that aside, there's so many aftermarket options. I wouldn't consider that necessarily to be a negative thing, where you can put it on a strap that's a little bit more water resistant than the leather that it comes on. But this watch is going to feature a sapphire caseback, unlike some of the others in the list, which is going to give you a display of the finely decorated movement. At $7,500 retail, this is actually coming in a little bit under $7,500 retail, I believe $7,250 in the United States pre-tax. This is going to give you a movement that is going to be, in my opinion, more finely, more beautifully decorated than anything else that you can obtain for this money at this retail price point. And that shows JLC is dedicated to watch collectors. This movement's going to feature a 70-hour power reserve and a new barrel design that they've come out with in this recent model, which includes a new lubrication method on the movement, as well as a silicone escapement, which is going to make this watch more accurate, more consistent, and more consistently accurate. And it's a simple watch, right? When we're talking about everyday watches, simplicity is part of it, right? You wouldn't necessarily want to wear, let's say, a Perpetual calendar chronograph every day, because complications in a watch just make it less applicable to everyday wear. Why not keep it more simple so that you can use it every day and not worry about the things that come with complications? Extra complexity means more reasons or more ways that things can go wrong, and things you're probably just not going to do or use every day. It's made for a specific function. If you're not using that function every day, what's the point? What's the point of paying for it? What's the point of having it in a one watch collection? So I like this watch for someone that wants a higher end watch than the watches mentioned, a more finely decorated watch in terms of the movement and the case construction from a brand that has historically focused on watch collectors and seems to be continuing to do so in the future. I really like this watch. What do you think about JLC, which I think is a brand that really needs to be on the radar of collectors today? Because while you could get a discount and a great deal on these, they're drying up, and JLC is really catching a lot of the trickle over from what would have been a Patek Philippe or an Audemars Piguet or now a Vacheron buyer. They're getting into JLC, so this is a brand I also think you should jump on if you're on the fence. But what do you guys think? Do any of you out there have one watch collections? I know it can be oftentimes very difficult to do this, especially since we all love watches so much, and oftentimes we get pulled in different directions when new watches come out. But what do you think? One watch collections, leave your collections in the comments below. Thanks, guys. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.